Hello, everyone. I'll give you a second to get connected. Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 1311th New Social Environment. I'm Magley, a programs associate here at the Rail, and I have the extreme pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Alicia Kwade. And now I'll introduce today's guest and host. Alicia Kwade investigates universally accepted notions of space, time, science, and philosophy by breaking down frames of perception. Kwade's practice spans sculpture, installation, video, and photography. She utilizes quotidian and found objects to explore ideas about the fabric of reality. Kwade's use of elements reflects her interest in both physics and chemistry, using art to examine the phenomena of the physical world. Kwade examines planetary systems, molecular compositions, and mathematical frameworks, exploring both the physical and metaphysical. While her work is often associated with minimalism, Kwade approaches her practice with an eye toward conceptual art. Kwade is currently a resident at Villa Massimo and will open a solo exhibition at Pace's Tokyo Gallery this fall. And our host today, Ginevra de Blasio, is a writer and curator from Rome. Now based in New York City, she graduated with a BA in art history and visual culture from the University of Exeter, England, and an MA in Visual Arts Administration at NYU. Ginevra had curatorial and work experiences at the Drawing Center, Performa, Fondazione Corsini, 99 Canal, and Paula Cooper Gallery. Currently, she is involved in multiple projects and serves as a research assistant to Adam Weinberg, Director Emeritus of the Whitney Museum of American Art. And with that, I will hand it over to Ginevra to get us started.
Thank you, Magli. Thank you, the Brooklyn Rail, for hosting this conversation, and Alicia for wanting to share with us more about her current show in Rome, and to everyone listening in today. So, I wanted to begin this conversation speaking about the actual site of your show entitled INFRASUPRA. And this site is very special because it's inside this non-for-profit organization called FOROF, and it is located within the ruins of a Basilica Ulpia, which was one of the largest and most important public buildings in ancient Rome, and it was used as a manumission ceremony site, meaning where the enslaved people from the ancient Roman Empire obtained freedom and obtained Roman citizenship. So I imagine, Alicia, that being so immersed in such historically dense and architecturally charged environment must have been very inspiring, but also challenging for you. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how you engaged in this space and this history.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I mean, I knew that I'm gonna be a resident at Villa Massimo, so I kind of been really interested to, to kind of also dive in, like whatever romance, let's say, art, happenings, and then I've been lucky to meet, Giovanna Fendi and to be introduced to them through Galleria Continua. So I went to Rome to see the space because this is always the first thing I'm always doing when I have a request to show my work somewhere. I had no idea about the Basilica Ulpia until that moment, actually. So I went to Rome, and I've been introduced to the place and what it used to be. And as you already said, I mean, it's not, the space itself. It's not a classical museum space. It's not like a white cube. It's far away from, let's say, an easy place to show art. Because the stage itself, which I would call kind of the entire, archaeological venue which we are faced with here, it's so rich of history and of meaning and of, like the, let's say, basic human, let's say, problems, desires. It was such an important place. So it is so impacted and dense in history and So it's kind of a little bit hard to do something about that, to be honest. So it's like this is actually pretty enough on its own somehow. So I have been very respectful. I try to be kind of respectful to what it is and to basically, create a narration which is kind of leading us from the street level to the archaeological site. And I tried somehow to underline the history of it rather than to kind of whatever to try to do something which is kind of denying it or not showing it. So yeah, that's what I kind of try to do.
And does the title have to do with this process, INFRASUPRA? Like, can you explain also what it means?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's because as you already said, I mean, this was a place, I mean, which is of course that important because it was, I mean, it was after the Roman Republic actually. I mean, when it was built, but still, they I mean, it was so important because the kind of Romans would get together, a decision would have been taken, and most important, the Manumissio was kind of yeah, I mean, executed, let's say, which meant that, a person who was like enslaved had the, yeah, would kind of be sent to freedom, which of course is like, I think there could be not a harsher contrast in human lives than like being owned and being a citizen, right? Which is kind of hard even to still believe. But so this procedure was kind of yeah, made there. And infrasupra for me, it means exactly these two places, where you could be, it's kind of you're born in a social like situation, or you're born in some whatever cliches and yeah ideas of society which you cannot really influence. So it's like like this or that, depending on on your social background and kind of where the stars would even throw you into somehow. And this kind of procedure was somehow in like changed also through the Manumissio in this procedure.
Mm-hmm. And is this something, let's say this like metaphor and imagery, is this something that you were already thinking about in your practice, or was it the first time that you kind of like were brought to reflect on these dynamics?
Oh no, it's for sure not the first time. I mean, what what Megli was describing before, what I'm doing, that's one part of it. But I very much, I very much wonder about the human being, what it is. And I very much wonder why we still do not treat ourselves equally, why still there is so much kind of, unfairness and kind of silly treatments on this planet, even that we know that we're all the same. I mean, we are sharing like 99.99% of our DNA. So kind of there's, kind of let's say education wise, and we know that there is no such a thing like a big difference between us. But still it's somehow happening, right? So society is, like people are trying to elevate themselves above other people. They try kind of to be right. They try to I think we are just all kind of afraid to, about the fact that we have an end, and that's why people try to elevate themselves above others and system above others, and this kind of thing is permanently repeating. We haven't changed very much in the last 300,000 years, so it's kind of a hard thing to to kind of understand, because it's so obviously unneeded, and still society is manifesting that every day. So this is indeed a topic which I don't see so much like, from the, let's say, political point of view. I just somehow try to understand how it can come, even that we know that things are not as they are, and how society is somehow allowing that, and how we are agreeing on that. But as same as we would agree on a certain whatever measurement system, or we agree on certain values, or we agree on prices, we agree on like a time, what else, we agree on so many things, and why we do that, and how we repeat that, and how then things transform to a reality, which it seems to be, which is not always the case. It's just like an agreement for me. Yeah.
It's interesting that you're referring to this process that like nothing has really changed, this timelessness in a way, because I feel like the show, at least to me, really feels like you're not really sure if some elements, some sculptures were like already there and are part of the, the ruins in a way, like it's so installed, in a subtle way. And I think maybe we should start discussing and looking at the work so that we can kind of get that feeling through to the public. So I wanted to start with the sculpture Ghost, entitled Ghost, which is a bronze sculpture. And it really struck me because it has obviously all of these kind of like mythological associations to it, like the veil, like in ancient Rome, and this kind of classical drapery, but it's also obviously like very hauntingly contemporary. So I know that this was created from a 3D scan, and I wanted to, ask you a bit more about it and how you came about this piece.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I created that during one of these lockdowns during the pandemic. Um, But I mean, it's a bit ironic and humoristic work as well. So this is myself actually, and I covered myself with like a big blanket, and then I went to one of the 3D scanning booths, which they used to create suits, for like kind of, so they 3D scanned me, and so this is a result which was then milled and then cast in bronze. As a title in German, it's also a little bit specific. It's called actually the actual title is Geist, and a Geist, which is like a ghost, but it's more than a ghost. It's like it's your mind, it's a spirit. It's a spirit. It's kind of what you are. It's a spirit. Geist is like, it has a very, let's say, deep meaning in German language, which is a Zeitgeist or the Geist. It's like actually, yeah, you thinking, you being, or like also a certain time. Anyways, because I think this time when I did the work, I was working on a couple of works at the same time. So I was I did like I created a work like a year or two ahead where I was like analyzing my not analyzing, but I was showing my entire DNA information in a big installation. And then I've been storing my DNA on a blockchain. I was kind of experimenting about this kind of information thing. And of course, this work is like kind of denying, what seems to kind of be your own identification. Because then it's like, I mean, I'm just covered. It's like not me. It's like kind of, trying to deny all your kind of physical, let's say, appearance and putting it back to this geist, the ghost, like kind of the unphysical being and what that is and what we are actually, like without all the, let's say, outer attributes of ourselves, which are still very much, putting us, as we know, in different positions on this planet. Even that, and that's why I kind of came to this work, even that it's proved and known that we are basically all the same, and these little differences are so slight, they should actually be ignored somehow because we are sharing, most of our like DNA information altogether. Anyway, so that was like a little bit like a, let's say like a little bit humoristic, ironic, self-ironic comment on that, let's say. And but I decided to place the work at the Basilica Ulpia entrance in Fodov, because I mean this is a place, as we already described, it's a place where people would gather for hundreds and thousands of years, kind of trying to solve problems which we are still trying to solve. Kind of repeating this social framework in different shades and different situations. And so we can say that there've been, so many witnesses of that, so many footsteps being on those marbles, so many kind of problems and so many, I mean, like people lives who have been kind of decided about in this place. So I kind of wanted to have this ghost witness in the show somehow.
Yes, it definitely brings in this kind of like strong theatrical sense in the show. Also, our public doesn't know, but you enter the space by walking down the stairs. So it's like as if you're entering a new, more historical like dimension. And then this is the first work you meet in the first room, like leading up to like a longer hallway. So I think it really enhances this idea of like introducing yourself into this like pathway in a way.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like a cellar basically, you know? So you need to get down like a quite long staircase, and then you're like entering this kind of dark ecological yeah site.
Exactly. And so can we like if when you move on the exhibition, then you encountered this series of works called Malus Multiplex, which is very illusionary, I would say. And these are bronze casts of apples that you manipulated. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about, this process of manipulation and what this transformation means to you.
You know, it's a bit hard to talk for me about what it means. I mean, you know, it has many meanings, if you like, and it has a different meaning to everyone, as art, I think, should be. But I can just explain what I kind of tried to kind of do, or why I choose this work and not another one. So actually I wanted to have like a pathway from, you know, the upper side of the space through those staircase, passing this ghost, and then getting to the actual site where the old marble and the real, actually, you know, like ancient kind of pieces of architecture. So I was kind of thinking more about, you know, what this place used to be, what Rome is. Then, you know, in the exhibition, we are starting with those two chairs, which are referring to this, you know, like what I was trying to explain, you know, the social position of humans on the planet. You know, you're rather the carrier, or you're rather the one who's carried. So depending on your social status. So, and an apple, of course, you know, an apple is like, it was, you know, there's so many like portraits of kings and emperors holding up an like a sphere, like a, you know, which is also, which used to be an apple as a symbol for the globe, right, for our planet. So that's why I kind of chose this object, which was also like important in Roman history as a symbol for power, fidelity, you know, many different kind of meanings, which is also very powerful, of course. In, you know, it kind of, it reads in all kind of cultures as a very important symbol. I mean, even, you know, the easiest probably is to, which everybody can connect to, is like, you know, Eve passing the apple to Adam to kind of, you know, throw him down from heaven to this globe, somehow from paradise to the globe. But it's not just this, it's like kind of, I think that you can read it in many, many, many different ways. But of course, it's something which is symbolizing power. But those apples are not like kind of normal apples, but they do have like this kind of, I don't even know how you call that in English, but you know, this part which is connected to the branch. And that's why they're called Malus multiplex, because it seems like they would have grown on many different trees in the meantime. So as if they would kind of connect, like kind of the other way. So it's also a little bit ironic, you know, what that means and what the influences are, and what the influences on this planet are, what the influences of like kind of what changes are, which we are making to our reality or our planet and things like that. So, but it's very also like a bit like joyful and kind of humoristic. So it's yeah, it's both. It's kind of funny fruits with a kind of deep symbolic in art history since many thousands of years.
And what about, I mean, the way that they are installed is also very interesting on these plinths that look like plastic, but they're actually marble, right? And also the way that like they're installed on the floor, almost as a result of a performance. How did you kind of come up with that?
Yeah, but it's also like, you know, I mean, how they are made physically really is like, you know, we took like one apple and then we are cutting out from other apples, we put it all together, and then it's gonna be cast in bronze. I mean, I'm always using those pedestals, so there is not like a specific meaning about that. It's marble, yes, but it does not has any veins, so it almost looks like cardboard or like whatever, a painted piece of wood or something. But still, it has a different appearance, but that's why I like it. And I decided kind of to put it in favor because it is, of course, when you put something on a pedestal, it elevates, right? It tries to kind of be seen. And things which are kind of lying on the ground somehow, they look like more just fallen, you know, freshly fallen from a tree. So it's also like a little bit like you see in the beginning of the exhibition those two shares, one is up, another one is down. You know? So it's kind of, it depends how things are seen depending, of course, on their placement. So it's a bit like about, elevating and letting down, like a little bit like a performance, as if somebody would have kind of, throw them down from the pedestal, or they are put up and put on the pedestal. So it kind of implants an action. But it's kind of vice versa. It could be like picking up and putting on top, or letting down and drop.
And there's also an apple, like in another room, that is a bit different. Yes, this one here. And so this one has a series of holes. I don't know if we have a closer up image.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I was like, how did the form of the apple kind of like stay so perfect? How
Oh,
did
it's
you
quite. It's like, I mean, it's also like a work which actually happened a little bit by coincidence. You cannot really see it because we don't have a detail now. But actually, it looks, I don't know. Sorry, I'm missing this English terms sometimes for like specific tools. Like, so, like when you prepare apples and you want to take out this inner part, right? Like where you have the seeds and stuff.
seed?
So,
Yeah.
so there is like a roundish sink which you kind of pull through the apple, and then you are getting out this thing. And actually, I was redoing that for my son or something. So I was like, getting kind of treating these apples. And then for some reasons, I kind of decided to treat it as long as, it is able to kind of keep its outer form. And in the end, it looks like a, Buckminster filler or something, construction, architecture. But that is like another kind of my work. It's more like let's say it's like a little bit about, let's say, female kitchen work things which are leading to something, and then they remind to something, and then it's still an apple, but it's not, and it's architecture. But it's also, it is in the show because I wanted to kind of connect those this kind of apple works to give it like one narration and one treat. And this little thing really looks like a piece of architecture, but it's not. It's original. It's really the original apple. And it's a lost cast, which means that it is, in sand, and then the bronze, gets in, and it kind of, it is burning out the original organic matter, and leaving the bronze where it used to be.
I find it really interesting, the interplay kind of between like the trompe l'oeil of the apples, with like the deformations, and then the other apple which is deformed by you on purpose. Like that duality. I don't know if you ever thought about the conversation between the two in
No,
that
I
way.
don't, I mean, this is like the good thing about being an artist, I'm not an art historian, so I'm not like trying to analyze my works like too much myself. I mean, I do it because I have like an inner drive and a logic and need and a concept to do that. But it definitely does not need to be read as the same from people who are looking at that. That's what it should always be. It's kind of very, and very, I mean, I would also never like tell all of it, because it's also like, you cannot really explain all of it as well. It's kind of, so you can kind of just explain, like, let's say the outer peel, but it's kind of hard to explain each little detail, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of art, right? Everyone can see what they like in it, and maybe you disagree, and maybe even the artist doesn't know. Who knows who's right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then maybe we should like focus on the most, let's say, final and most striking part of the exhibition, which is where the actual archaeological site of the Basilica Ulpia is. And here, your intervention was not only, let's say, sculptural, but it was also spatial. And you use these, here you can see it clearly, use black felt to cover the sections of them on the floor that are not covered in marble. And this creates a beautiful, like, visual kind of illusion. It's almost as if you have a feeling of like floating in this room, like as in a galaxy. At least that was my feeling. And yeah, I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about this intervention.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as I said, when I kind of enters this space, it's like a mission impossible a little bit, because I thought, okay, there's so many like elements and details and, on this archaeological site. So you actually, you are completely like kind of fulfilled just to look at them and learn about them. So I felt it kind of extremely difficult to add something to it. So I kind of decided to, instead of trying really to add, to try to find like something which could like activate the given, let's say, somehow. So that's why, and when I was always like looking at this marble and I always seen it like with the lights on, it was kind of hard to see because this the surface, which now I covered with this black fabric. I mean, beneath you have like a concrete, like a little like, like, yeah, concrete, old concrete or something. It's not concrete because they had it's cement. Actually, it's the original cement where the marble was mounted to. But somehow, because it almost has the same color, it's like the same gradient of color as the marble has, the marble would kind of not appear as much, and I kind of wished it to kind of appear more, but also kind of to give it like a different, yeah, almost like a different level, because it as you have seen, I think in real, it almost like appears like holes, right? Like deep holes, like in between the marble, and the marble then appears as if it would float on like a black something surface. So this is like kind of this, the unknown somehow, if you like. So it's like, so I was happy that it kind of worked out and you can really like see the marble much more, and also the edge of the marble where it ends and how thick it is. And then it kind of leads to this kind of unknown black holes or something. So I kind of tried to activate the given with this intervention, which is not really like a work. I mean, it's like I just tried to activate the space, the given space was there. And then I had another piece which I've been showing twice already, but it never felt kind of right in the space. And this time it really felt right in the space. And this is kind of this boulder which you can see, and the light bulb, and they're rotating around each other. With time, it's changing the speed, so it gets from a like very big circle to a very, 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 very small and slow, and then it gets up and gets fast again, which of course is making this shadow of the stone appearing very small and very big on the walls and very fast and very calm, which takes about like 2 minutes to see the effect. So I don't know if many people have seen that, because you need to actually stay in the space for like, I don't know, 10 minutes altogether, I think. But this is of course like also changing the shadows of the people who are like actually looking at the space. So they are also activating the space with their own appearance, because the shadows are also then, like rotating around the space. And depending on the speed of the object, it seems like it makes you nervous, or it's very, very calm and very kind of, yeah, like it's somehow, it somehow surrounds something which you cannot see, of course, but it's not there. And I have been told that this manumission, so this act of giving freedom, was exactly proceeded exactly there, where those two objects are kind of surrounding each other, which I found like incredible, that it was really the place where this so, kind of strong gesture and change was made. And also, but even still, it's hard to believe that some people, would kind of dare to have the power, above other people and stuff. So it's, it has many, many, many layers. But also it has something very magical, of course, and also something positive, but also something negative. So it's like, yeah, it's for me, it's really the place of, both ends of human kind of ability of the good and the bad, as you like. Yeah, so I really tried to, with the shadow, to activate the space, and to activate the space with the light, with the visitors, and with the given objects in it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually exactly see this circle in this picture. I guess that it's you, I mean, you filled it with felt because it was empty, because probably there was a piece of stone, or colored marble that was stolen as much as of Rome was. So it's quite
For sure, yeah,
incredible
yeah,
how,
yeah.
you're kind of visibly seeing where the actual circle was located, and only with this felt you can see it so vividly. So it's very interesting that you made that choice.
Yeah, that was for
And
sure on purpose, yeah, to make it more, yeah, visible.
mhm. And what about, I mean, of the curatorial, let's say, choice of this room is also interesting, because I saw other exhibitions and you kind of really chose to have the lights, no light, basically. So the ruins are very it's very hard to see through them the colors of the marbles. And then you have another work which is opposing this one, that is this blue sphere, which is very interesting. And then you have another sphere which is almost invisible to the eye of the public. And yeah, I mean, these pictures are actually more well lit than how you can see them in real life. So I was wondering, what was the choice there?
Oh, I mean, as I said, I kind of tried to kind of work with the given situation, and this hole was already there. So, of course, so we guess they think that maybe there was like a sculpture, exactly in this place, and there might have been the foundation, which we can see as a hole now, but I mean, it's not known. So I kind of decided to place the sphere in this hole, so it looks a little bit like like a strangely whatever landed planet. It almost seems like an impact to the space, which is not, of course, because it was very gently placed there to not destroy any of the given. And there's another one which you really can't almost see. You can just see it a little bit with the shadow. As you said, this picture is much more lit than the actual situation in the space. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, for me, anyways, as I'm saying, I think we when you look at what we are and who we are, it's a quite absurd situation to live like on a blue spinning sphere, and repeating the same folds all over, or trying to, achieve the same goals, again and again. And so, yeah, it's just a comment on that. It's just us, it's a little bit like looking at us, being stuck, being stuck in a situation.
And how was it to move this huge sphere, which must be really heavy, in that specific hole? I mean, it must have been a crazy operation.
I mean, we are used we are used to manage much more crazy situations. So that was okay. So this is just 800 kilos. I mean, it's okay. But I was happy that, everybody was really, hands on, and it needed really like manpower of a couple of gentlemen and some kind of inventions. But yeah, they can made it, and yeah, I really love it there. It just looks like it should kind of stay there, and it kind of fits perfect.
Yes, and the conversation between the stone is super interesting too, like the contrast between this kind of like travertine reddish tones and the blue, but the how the ve veins are very different between the two. I think it's really beautiful. Did you do some like research on the type of marble that you wanted to use, or because
Sure,
these
but
were
yeah, sure. I mean, this blue marble I'm using, it's actually not a marble, it's a quartzite, which comes from Brazil. It's a macaúba, how they call it. But anyways, it's not about what I found so fascinating about those kind of stones, which we all kind of take for, certain, like, everybody has like like, I mean, it's kind of a thing we all know from our daily lives, that there is like kitchen counters with nice marbles and veins, and there's like floors, and there's bathrooms, and there's that and that. But indeed, this is the history of this planet. It's like catastrophic dense events of millions and millions of years, where seas would dry out and volcanoes would destroy life or create life. And so it's like witnesses of this planet. And it's made all the colors, they just appear because of like, yeah, of life and things which kind of happen to this blue sphere. So this is kind of the intention. It's not, of course I know each little piece where it comes from the marble I'm using. At least I don't know, of course, where. I think this is Roman kind of marble which they use for the Basilica Ulpia. But yeah, I can kind of follow up my stones to like all the way where they come from and where they go. Yeah.
No, of course, but there's a history of kind of like color selection also, because the Basilica Ulpia, if I remember correctly, has like a very rare selection of marbles. I think the yellow marble that is present on the floor is one of the very few examples remaining.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting with the connection with And what about this material for this sculpture here? What is
This is
that?
a Carrara. This is a Carrara marble, so it's an Italian marble. No, for me, but it was just to get back to that. For me, it was more kind of a visual thing, and also like this kind of connection to what you see. That is like it kind of the blue one, of course, definitely reminds us to planet Earth, and this one reminds us to like another option. Like it looks like, almost like a frozen planet or something, so it looks like a different status of something which we know. But it's for me, it's just more like a reminder of, of different possibilities. I mean, of different way of being, of different kind of options we kind of are in each second, and kind of the coincidental events which kind of happen to us. This is more about that. It's not so much about the marble itself, which I kind of very much aware of, but it's not so much important for this.
Mm-hmm. I see. And what about, I'm very interested in the way that like you are kind of like reactivating the exhibition, because I didn't come to the opening, but I came to one of those, let's say, reactivation where there was a beautiful like concert by this band called Mirage. And I was wondering like how did you kind of frame this kind of curation around the exhibition and how it's connected to it?
Oh,
Because
I
it's
just
something
very
quite
much.
unique. Yeah.
Yes, but it's not, to be honest, I mean, I mean, I'm not on control of every little part. So I very much deeply respect what Giovanna and her team are doing there. And they try to activate the space and reactivate it all over again to also reach out to a different kind of public. So I think it's very, very rare and good thing what they're doing with all these kind of activities around the show and the seasons that they are like, starting in the place. But it's not something I mean, I did one, which was also like a concert from one of the bands me and my partner are kind of carrying under our record label, which is more like my partner's thing, but I'm also part of it. So that was a concert on the 16th of December with the band Par. And the next season, which I'm gonna curate, is going to happen on the 24th of April. And I invited Tobias Dostler, who is a dear friend and artist himself, and one of my brother's artists who is running a gallery, but also one of the most successful magicians on this planet. So it's kind of, yeah, I think the beautiful thing is to to invite and to interact with different kind of media and culture and art. And this is kind of the good thing about, reactivating the space almost each other once.
Yes, I think it's very special, like usually like in a gallery space you don't see that so much like in conversation. So it's definitely interesting. And I was wondering, so you are doing a residency at Villa Massimo in Rome. So I'm sure that you are like in this kind of like Italian Roman influence right now in your practice. And however, these works were works that were already conceived in the past, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Each artist is working kind of differently, but to be honest, I'm sometimes kind of jealous about, I call them the inspired artists. I'm not, I more need to, to kind of close myself in a little chamber with no lights and no windows somehow. So this is how I kind of prefer to work. So it's not, that I would like kind of walk around Rome and gather inspiration and then kind of influence that in my work. But of course, it's influencing my work. But I never do that on purpose somehow. It's more like that. My interest just leads me to different things, and of course, Rome is, this kind of very dense place of human history and human desires and human failures and human, like it's like, all this chaos of what we do, what we desire, and you can still see that, it's kind of always the same to escape this life, to escape, to get somewhere else, whatever, to kind of yeah, all of that is in Rome. And of course, it's amazing to see that in your kind of daily life. You don't need even in Rome, you don't even need to go anywhere. It's everywhere, it's everywhere anyway. So you just have to kind of, you are bumping in all this kind of things all the time. So it's not something which is I would actually like look through my daily practice to be influenced, but it is usually coming a little bit later, not even with me being very aware of that. Those works, yeah, have been all kind of conceived before, but that is not so important to me. Of course, it was just like an actual task I had to activate this Basilica Ulpia and to make something out for me, which is satisfying for me and makes sense. And this is what I tried. It's like not yeah. And of course it's it's always like just like a big, how to say, it's a privilege to just kind of try to to experience your daily routine somewhere else for a while, even if you can, of course it's not probably where I'm going to stay for much longer than the residency is, even that I hope I can find a good reason to come back to Rome each other time again, because I really appreciate being there. But yes.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because it's almost as if you found Rome within your work. Like when you said, like that you kind of organized all of the works in such a way, it's almost as if you are seeing that vision within the work. And so it kind of like opens up the possibility to exist as something more, right? But I'm wondering if now for the future, let's say, of the works that you're making post this like Rome experience, although it's not a direct influence, if there is maybe like a material that you're working, or in a very like practical sense, like what are you working now in Rome, and what will your next shows be in? Do you have a sense of that?
I can't say really. It's like I wished, to be honest, it's like, I wished I could probably have more time in Rome to really let the influences in more and to really like look for them on purpose. But indeed, and to be honest, how I work is like, I work on multiple projects in the same time, and each is so different to the other. So right now I'm working on a museum show in Geneva. I'm working on a museum show in Tel Aviv. I work, so it's so different contexts and problems and things to kind of think of. So of course I don't have I can't let in like too much, like like a material source which is connected to Rome so much or whatever as it could be. But as I said, my work never has been influenced by rather my life, no, not by the place where I am on purpose. So I'm not really actively looking for that. I never did. And when I was even young, I was really trying to cut that completely out, which is of course impossible. I learned that you cannot cut out yourself or your environment. But so those things are usually coming kind of, automatically, because of course, being an artist, it's not like being a private person and having a job. It's like it's you. All of that is you. So it's kind of hard to, so it's like, you filter all influences anyway. So I can't say what is, gonna stay as a Roman influence, but I will see it probably just like in 2 years or 3 years, or probably never, or probably right away. It's really hard to judge about that.
And would you say that so your main focus in your practice and in your creative process is research? What would you define as like?
Yes. It's research. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's it's both. It's. I mean, it's hard to how to explain an artist's practice. It's because it's not like a normal practice. It is. It's well. So it is, of course, like a problem, a need you kind of have or feel. Or in my case, it's like some understand. So I kind of simply do not understand things around myself, which are kind of leading to the very old human problems, which was like, why is that what it is? Why it appears what it is, and why I believe to be me, and why I believe to be here, whatever, all this kind of philosophical but physical problems. So of course, I research on that, but then it's not just a read, because I'm not, trying to get the result of my research. There's no result and there's no proof. And I also don't need to have any result. I never have a result. So there is no result and there is no proof. It's just like distillate of my thoughts about trying to explain the unexplainable to myself. And do this procedure probably sometimes I'm able to unveil things or to get like an emotional access for people to something, or to possibly make people see things from another point of view. But I don't even have a goal on that, because that would be, you know, much more than my artistic influence is about. And I think what all artists are doing is like more that we are like, I don't know, we are like a, I can't say, it's like a, yeah, it's like a dance situation we are in, and we try to show that probably, which is like, you know, human desires and problems and understandings, not understandings, in the time frame of the presence. And we are just, you know, speaking that out through our work somehow, you know. So this is what it is, I think, in the end.
Very interesting. I mean, I think this is something that varies, you know, a lot today in between practices. But the last question that I have that is related to this is like, um, how do you feel like your work for an audience is relatable to today? Like, speaks about what is going on today, or if it does, it might not. Maybe it
Oh
does
no, I
something.
mean, you know, it's really hard to explain. It's something, it's kind of, to be honest, impossible to explain what it is to be an artist and to make art, because it's not something very logical in the very end. It's something which has like a own inner logic, and this is why it's kind of impossible to explain. But still, let me try to explain. What I'm trying to do is that I try to understand why we are so easily actually to be made believe in things, to be kind of also be tricked out. How you know, limited our senses are, how easy we are how easy we are to be convinced to believe in stuff, how easy we kind of place ourselves in a social framework, how easy we you know, we agree to things like whatever, yeah, you know, like kind of give facts which are just not no facts, but kind of, you know, coincidental political or physical kind of situations. So this is what I try to do for myself, because I truly do not believe in all those kind of so-called given things. Because if you look deeply in things, it is quite easy actually, but it's kind of probably making more effort to not believe than to believe. It's easier to believe than not to believe, because if you don't believe in things, you have to question why you don't believe. So you have to actually question the chair you're sitting on. You have to question the table you're leaning your hands on. You have to question all of it, right? And then this leads you automatically into the void, and there's not much left, let's say, you know. So and then it kind of makes you struggle about your own existence, all of that. So it's an uncomfy situation. But I kind of truly believe that we should bring ourselves much more in this uncomfortable situation. You know, instead of, you know, having kind of opinions which we just copy because it's easier to do that, or beliefs we copy because it's easier to navigate through life, you know, by accepting and by believing. This is kind of what kind of I truly believe it is. And for me, you know, humankind and all of this kind of circumstances we are living in right now, it's just absurd. I mean, it's yeah, it's just absurd sometimes. I mean, why we do this kind of really absurd things to each other, and how yeah, ironic that all is actually, and almost hard to believe that we do that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think not only artists, I think everyone feels that same reaction today,
Yeah.
hopefully. But I was wondering, like, did this understanding and, like, let's say, idealistic perception of your work, did that change through time? Like, is it something that you needed maturity to achieve, or was it something that was always clear from the start when you started making your work about, like, this is my focus?
Yeah, it has not changed much. It's just more like I've been always kind of interested in the same topics, but for me, it's also like a learning progress, right? So it's like, you know, I kind of, even that you cannot compare it to like a normal, let's say, learning or studying, but for me, I kind of learn things from each work and I didn't try to use it for another work. So which does not mean that I'm getting better. Sometimes I'm going, reverse. But still, it's like a learning progress all the time. And I'm trying for myself. I'm trying to get better, which is not bad that I am, and probably I'm not. But this is what I do. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of be more clear about what I'm doing, to be more, yeah, to whatever, to add as less as I can. But the source of interest has been always the same. But of course, because I'm saying, I researched quite a lot for each other work. So of course, I'm learning about things, each other time. And then, once I learned about something, I'm getting curious about another string of what I was not probably interested in for the actual work. But then it opens other fields for me. And then I go another string and it opens another field and opens another field. So this is how it kind of develops. But let's say, which is getting more and more surprising to me actually when I see my very early works, that it hasn't really changed much about the themes I'm interested in. I've never been really interested in, let's say, my own biography or like all of that. It's more about trying to observe myself as a human being on this planet and trying to see why things are like they are, and how I react and how I accept and what I am and what I'm not am, but like more like in a objective way. So just to understand this whole construct, yeah, somehow, which is kind of not to understand this. This is a problem. But
Thank you, Lisa. This was really, really interesting. I think I'm going to leave it here for the public. If I'm sure people have their questions, so I would like to give them some time too. But this was very interesting. Thank you so much.
thank you, Ginevra. Thank you. And see you soon somewhere in Rome or New York.
Exactly.
Thank you both so much for such a wonderful conversation. To our audience members, there is a link in the chat. If you have a question for Alicia, please paste it in or submit it in the link, and then we will turn to you next. The first question comes from someone in the audience who is wondering what an average day in the studio for you is like.
It's very normal. It's kind of, let's say, okay, no, I just describe what it is. So usually I would come in about 10 or 11 a.m. in the morning. We are a team of about 25 people per day in the studio, 25 to 30 people, I think. So I'm coming in the studio, and actually then I have a quite big schedule ahead myself, and I go from one of my team members to the other team member, and then we go from one project to another project. So, I have like, let's say there's like probably 5 project managers, and they are working, each of them is working on, I don't even know, but probably 10 different projects. And so we go through each kind of step. And we're discussing, sometimes it's just about technical solutions they invented and they're informing me about that. Or if there's any, let's say, formal issue which might concern due to the need of technical solutions, of course, they have to inform me, and then I'm checking on that. Because actually what I do, but this is like the normal day. So we go from one to the other, then I go to the workshop, I go there, I go to blah, blah. And then, the day unfortunately finished at like about 6 p.m. nowadays, because then I have to rush to pick up my child from the nanny. And then that's it. But so it's more like unfortunately, it's a little bit like a company almost. But then what I try to do is that I'm trying to get in the studio on the weekends, or like I have like two evenings per week where I'm swapping with my partner. And then I'm staying in the studio like along at night. And this is where I'm actually really working. So where I do sketches, I do research, and then I would share those sketches via email with my team. And so they're having that sketches on their desks the next morning. And then again, it starts. I'm going from one to the other, and I'm explaining, what I try to express, what I try to do. And they're helping me to make it visible. So we are using a lot of, 3D programs. It's about, so the first steps are helping me with the communication. So I can communicate with the curator or with the gallerist or whoever is going to show it, hopefully. And then another step is so my work basically finished when I approve the work, and I'm like, okay, this is how I want to have it. And then my team is jumping on it and they are producing it. And then I'm checking on the steps of production. So this is the actual day.
Amazing. Thank you for that answer. The next question comes from someone else in the audience who says, limitations and budgets aside, is there a space where you've always wanted to see your work?
Sorry, say the last sentence again.
Is there a space where you've always wanted to see your work?
Oh gosh, there's so many. It's I can't really say. I love oceans. I love deserts. I love. There's many museums, but I can't name because it brings bad luck, I think. So I'm not saying it out loud. But of course they are. But of course there are limitations, budgets, all of that. But I mean, due to the years, I think I am quite flexible. I mean, I can do it can be very small and tiny, and almost like not needing any budget. But of course, yeah, honestly, I love the big budgets because then we can try things out. We can go big, we can go public, and I love going public because I deeply believe in public art and I deeply believe in the importance of that. But it costs money, yes, so we need budgets for that, and we need help, and we need machines. Everything is a pain in the ass, but in the end, it's great to have a result and to be able also to somehow give that to public. So that's why, yes, from tiny to big. It's very flexible and it can be adjusted, but of course it's great if you have the space and the budget to do something challenging. Yeah.
Definitely. The next question comes from Marie in the audience, and Marie wants to know if you're influenced by any painters. If so, who?
I'm really bad at painting, and it's really hard for me to judge painting. I'm reacting to paintings very emotional with like kind of not much of a knowledge behind, to be honest. So I tried to paint myself when I was very young, which was actually a mess. I never kind of find it satisfying, and I also been not very good at that. So I kind of gave up on this. But of course, there's many painters who influenced me, but it's no hard to say even. I mean, as you know, I'm also like meeting things which I've been not aware that they feel influential. Like, I mean, just recently I kind of discovered Agnes Martin for myself, but I never kind of thought that it would have ever influenced me. But then I kind of, due to Arnie Glimcher, actually, he actually explained me why I'm influenced by that. But indeed I am, so it very much depends. I can't really say it. It's very much about kind of somehow my mood or whatever. But when I was very young, I was deeply, I think, impressed by the surrealists, by I mean, like Max Ernst, like even Salvador Dali. I kind of liked this way of thinking, but also things like the probably best painting ever is the Black Square from Malevich. I mean, yes, so I am influenced by painting, but it's not that I due to my, let's say, probably I have more knowledge art historian wise in sculpture and land arts and stuff that I do have in paintings. That's why it's kind of harder for me to kind of really understand why I am possibly influenced by that. But yes, it influenced me very much, like emotionally, and yeah.
Thank you. And our last question, someone is wondering how you approach making installations outdoors versus in the public, or how you approach making installations that are outdoors and in the public differently than how you make work for traditional white cube spaces.
Oh, I mean, let's say from my own it's hard to explain a bit. So there is no difference in how I do it. I mean, like how I, judge my own decisions and things. This is all the same, basically. But of course, it's very much, it always depends where it's going to be. And if I know if it goes somewhere like temporary or if it's going to stay there forever. So it very much depends on that, because I do, for example, many outdoor sculptures, also almost like public sculptures, but could be public sculptures, but I just produce them because I want to do them. And they're sometimes shown indoors first, but they could potentially go outdoors. So of course, it always has to function in the space where I show them, right? So this is like the first thing. So no matter if that is outdoors, indoors, it has to function and it has kind of to appear and it has to have an impact. So this is the first thing. But of course, you like when it comes to, like, let's say, public commissions and things, I mean, there's many practical things to deal with, which you don't have like in protected museum spaces or galleries. So there's things like, it has to be maintained and has to follow some security rules. It has to, I mean, there's so much engineering and things, and also you're quite limited, of course, in material, right? So because there's not much you can use, I mean, and outdoors. So yes, so this is a big difference, of course. So like, let's say if you produce like for like a secured inner museum or a residential or whatever, it's of course you have kind of much more freedom because you can just basically use whatever you want and it's always protected. And outdoor public sculpture is much more of a challenge because you have to face just very practical problems you have to deal with. And still, because still with the limitation you are given, you still have to try to kind of, make it still it being your work and, express what you want to express. So it's kind of harder, but it's also great because it's more challenging and it's kind of more, somehow, let's say, social.
Thank you for that answer, Alicia. And thank you, Ginevra. That concludes our Q&A portion. Thank you again, Alicia and Ginevra. Thank you to Emily and Talia from Pace Gallery and Salome from Alicia's studio for their support in preparing for today's event. We'd also like to thank the Marion Bolton Kippy Stroud Foundation and Tiger Foundation for sponsoring our NSE program and making these weekday conversations possible, and for their support of our growing archive, which you can view on the Rails YouTube channel. The Rail has been free and independent for 25 years. A donation directly supports our writers, staff, and operations. Support our work through the link in the chat. And if you're free, join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for a conversation with Monica Manzuto and Jose Curry and Monica De La Torre on the story and work of Curry Manzuto. And as Israel tradition, you can now all unmute and say hello and goodbye as you leave. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Such a fantastic
Thank you.
conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will join tomorrow.
Great conversation today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ginevra and Alicia.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye to New York.